are here. How are you?
We're here. I'm good. How are you?
I am well. This has been a long time coming. I can't believe we're here.
I know this has been a long journey to getting to this summit with decisions around COVID and,
Yep.
switching around speakers because we had to switch our live event up and all the things. But we are here
Yep.
and we are super excited. So okay, we have very special tonight. Our opening session, we are broadcasting live on Facebook and YouTube. So this is our only the opening session. So some of you are watching us on our stage inside of the platform. It's called Hopin. Others of you are watching us from Facebook and YouTube. If you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube, guess what? It's not too late to join us this weekend. We're going to put the link in the notes of how you can join us this weekend. So we are super excited, though, that everybody is here.
Yep.
If you don't know me, I'm Catherine Taylor. I help manage the Feisty Menopause brand on the back end, and I have with me
Celine Yeager.
Celine
Hello.
Yeager.
I love the intro. I love the groovy, the music to the podcast. That was Catherine. Thank you.
I didn't know it was going to start right when I put it on, though.
I thought
it cued because our Lindsay, our person that's managing everything, was still talking. I was like, oops, we're going live. So
here we go.
So we're here. Okay. Wherever you're watching us from, the first thing that we need to know from everybody is for you to tell us what makes you feisty. So if you're watching us on the stage inside of Hopin, or if you're watching us from Facebook and YouTube, we need to know what makes you feisty. And then while you're doing that, one thing to know is we have over 400 women from 27 countries registered for this event. Can you believe that, Celine?
That blows me away. I mean, I know, I sometimes look at the podcast stats, which are really entertaining. Like for a while, I think we were like first in Bermuda. Like we were like number one in Bermuda, which is amazing. But how many countries?
Okay, they say it's not working in Hopin. Lindsay, Can you check on that and see why it's not playing in Hopin? Or Sarah, can you tell us if it's not playing in Hopin? I'm not seeing it there either.
Welcome to technology, everyone.
Welcome to technology. Welcome to our lives. Even though we did test this all everywhere. Okay. So we're going to redirect people that are in Hopin. Sarah, if you could give them the link to go watch it on YouTube if they're in Hopin. It should be in our Slack channel. So, and we'll try to figure out why it's not showing up on Hopin. So,
we're used to crisis management.
We're used to crisis. Last time we didn't have a speaker show up on time. She was a very important speaker.
It's
fine. She came eventually. We had to waste some time. All right. So we've got people telling us why they're feisty. A couple of things that you all are going to want to know about this weekend is, again, we have this broadcasting live on our Facebook and YouTube channel, but the conference is going to be happening most of the weekend on a platform called Hopin, which for some reason we don't know why it's not working right now or why the stream is not going there. It's working. So we're figuring that out. But that platform is just like a real conference. So think of it at like you go to different sessions, you go to different like breakout halls. There's an expo. There are lots of feisty deals that you can get your hands on. So think of it just like an expo hall. That's where you're going to go back to all weekend, except for maybe tonight because we can't get it to play there. And then that's the big thing that's happening this weekend with the conference. Okay, Celine, why do you think that this conference is so important? Like, why does it matter so much?
Because it's literally changing lives. Like, we hear from people every weekly, if not daily. I hear from people who tell me that connecting with women in the same stage of their life has literally given them a new lease on life. It is the information that they're going to get is information that you really aren't getting anywhere else, especially for active, performance-minded women.
Yeah. 100%. And that's what our big hope is, that people come and they don't feel alone. Like they feel like they
Totally.
found their tribe and they found
Yep.
other women to connect with,
Yep.
and other women that are not willing. That will be the generation to change things. Like I have a 5-year-old niece,
100%.
and I just want her, when she, as she gets older, to be like, my aunt is kicking ass no matter what age she is.
And then she won't
So
even think about it.
she won't even think about it. She won't even think about it. So, speaking of that, you've got a great talk for us tonight.
I do. Are
So
are we good to go on that?
we are good to go on that. I'm gonna go off and try to figure out what's going on with our front stage, and then we'll do some announcements later that we were going to do in the front, because nobody
Okay.
on Hoppin is able to see it right now. So, you all know Celine. She is the host of the podcast Hit Play Not Pause. And what you probably don't know about Celine is how much time, energy, and love she puts into this community. And because she's passionate about it. And so I think every day she's on there answering your questions. She's really thinking about the material that goes out to you. She's really researching to make sure the right material is going out and that nobody's getting some bullshit that's
100%.
coming out from pseudoscience. And so I'm really excited to hear the things that Celine has been learning with her podcast and her talk we got next.
All right. Well, hello, strong, feisty women. I am so excited that you're here. And I am so very grateful to Catherine, to the team, and to all the amazing athletes, experts, researchers, scientists, dietitians, orthopedists, like everybody who is joining us this weekend to make that happen. Just so grateful that you are all here for our very first Feisty Menopause Summit. And we couldn't be together in Boulder, but we're all together now from all over the world, and that is awesome. So to start, I just wanted to share a little bit of a story about the genesis of my talk, because when I first wanted to call it We Got Next, it was totally just like a little play sports metaphor. Like, hey, pass us the ball, we got next. Or like, stop hogging the rock, little sisters, we got game too. And I don't play basketball, but you get the idea. It was really just a play on words. And then I had a call with the CEO of a menopause startup. And there are a whole lot of menopause startups right now that actually sort of changed it for me and gave it more meaning and maybe lit a bit of a fire under me. See, we were on this Zoom call, as one is in 2021. And we're talking very businessy. We're talking, it's about the demographic and how we can reach this demographic and what this demographic wants. And, a lot of business talk that was sort of going around me because, for better or for worse, I'm not a super business-minded woman. And then towards the end of the conversation, I kind of get the sense that maybe they're not hitting the marks that they want, and there might be a bit of frustration. And she says something that I really don't expect. She says, so do you think all this menopause in the media is just a passing fad? Like, do you think everyone is just going to move on to the next thing? And when I put my eyeballs back in my head and pick my chin off the desk, and I don't want to assume that she thought that, but I wanted to make it abundantly clear that there is no next thing. We are the next thing. We are the next thing. For decades and decades and decades, women of a certain age have been put out to pasture, right? Because of sexism and ageism. For decades and decades and decades, women in this time of life, in menopause itself has not been studied. It hasn't been addressed, even in the medical community, right? For decades, women were just dismissed, locked up, maybe burned at stakes. We are finally getting the research and attention and acknowledgement that we merit as human beings. And we are finally stepping out of the shame and the stigma and the shadows. And if you think that Genie is going back in the bottle, or if you think that this is just some passing fad and it's going to move on to what's next? Hell to the no. Not happening. It kind of really blows my mind to think that anybody could think that this is a passing fad. But then I think maybe they don't see what I see. Maybe they're not seeing, like, once we kicked open these doors, there was millions of women. There were millions of women out there just waiting to be talked to, just waiting to be seen. And I would love to share some of them with you tonight because I myself have been blown away by this community and I just want to share some of it with you. So I've got someone back there. We're gonna put up a couple of pictures and we're gonna talk about some of these amazing women in this community. Like this one. I love this one. And I love all of them, but I love this one a lot because I can't do that, like, at all. That is Maggie Odette. And Maggie started rock climbing 23 years ago. And she has really devoted, she's a professional climber, and she has devoted most of her life to it. And, you think of, especially a sport like that as you get older, you would start like maybe getting down lower on the wall and not doing such gnarly things because that's how we've always thought of these things. But but Maggie has done her two hardest routes to date. And not just hard for her, but like super hard. And I don't actually know what this means. I'm not going to fake it, but she did a 514B at age 49, which my climbing friends say is mind blowing, and her hardest climb at 50. So that is not a fad. Let's see who's next. Ha! Yeah, that does not look like a fad either. That is Nancy Harris, and she looks like she is dropping into a very rad future. She is going to be 65 next month, and she tells people, hit play and don't let menopause slow you down, and I don't think she's going anywhere anytime soon. Who do we have next? That's April Rutherford. She is 52 years old, and right there, she has just finished an endurance race that took 41 and a half hours, where she had to carry a 50-pound pack up and down mountains. She had to do, I don't know how many thousands of burpees that she told me. And she had to actually like light fire. She had to start a fire with flint and steel. And 32 hours into this odyssey, there was a half marathon. The most mind-blowing part of all this is she didn't start running until she was 45. That's a trend I'd like to get on. Who do we have next? I love this one. Adina O'Neill. Adina was just on the show this week. If you haven't heard it, you should definitely check it out. She is a self-described back of the pack racer. Adina, when she was about 40, couldn't even run a mile. She couldn't even complete 1 mile. She went from that place to doing her first triathlon at 40. And then after that, she did 50 more endurance events, including a marathon, an Ironman, multiple 10K swims, and a double century on her bike. And for those who don't know, that's 200 miles. That is awesome. Let's check out who is next. This is she was also on the show she was also on the show recently, and that is Nicole Cinqui. And she is, as you can tell, pretty badass, and she does not look like she is drifting off anytime soon. She has just won the off-road triathlon 50 to 50-year-old title, and not just age group, she finished third overall. So she's not going anywhere anytime soon. And then who do we have last? But not least, Lenita. Lenita will be talking to us about bone health this weekend. And I will just say, if that is a fad, if that is a trend, get me in line. I would like to be one too. So all these women, they're just scratching the surface of what we're seeing this year alone. We saw Leah Goldstein win RAM, the race across America. That is 3,000 miles across this big old country. And she did it in just over 11 days. And that's not, she didn't beat just the women, or she didn't just win her age group. She was the first human being to the East Coast. Men, women, everybody. But here's the thing. So Those are amazing slides, amazing stories. But for every woman we just talked about, there are millions, millions who have silently slipped off of the starting line, who have hung up their racing wheels, stopped going to CrossFit classes, checked out because their hormones have hijacked their well-being. They are suffering hot flashes, night sweats, bad sleep, endless symptoms because there are so many symptoms. There are nearly 3 dozen symptoms of menopause. Did you know that? Because I didn't know that. There are 34 official symptoms. And why are there so many symptoms? Because estrogen is really important. Our sex hormones are really, really important. They help regulate nearly every metabolic process in our bodies. And when during this transition, they start to fluctuate and swing wildly and eventually go like right off a cliff and flatline, that has a huge impact on us, a huge impact. And I hear from people nearly daily about that. And there are stories I didn't understand. And so I started listening. So I wanted to share a story that I got this week because it's so emblematic of this. It's so emblematic of how women can be completely blindsided in very active lives. You know, the mainstream media always says, well, you should exercise and you should eat right. And I'm like, but they are, you don't understand. So I am just going to read her story so you hear why this is so important. She says, I don't consider myself an elite runner, but I do okay in my small New England competitions. I got hit by the perimenopause bus. At age 49, I stopped sleeping and I had wicked brain fog. At 50, I started having migraines and joint pain. I struggled to get good medical care. I feel that the good meaning people on my medical team often made things worse. I'd never even take ibuprofen. I was anti-medication until my life as I knew it ended. After 6 months, I was depressed. I wanted my life back. I started antidepressants. I tried the migraine medications. I tried massage, which I couldn't afford, physical therapy, acupuncture, CBD, THC, meditation, yoga, and yet the symptoms persisted. Yet I continued to run, my personal act of defiance. Finally, 1 year into this, I get to see a menopause specialist. Waiting lists here are long. Most aren't taking new clients. My migraines aren't gone, but I don't have to carry rescue meds on every run. Despite all the crap, I have put myself on the start line of a few races this year, and showing up has been worth celebrating. Sometimes I have struggled to accept the results, wishing I had a different menopause or aging experience, but I know that's not helpful. And this is why we're here. Because there are millions of women who need a hand, who the whole system has overlooked. There are millions of women who, as the New York Times recently referred to in their story, why is perimenopause still such a mystery, have not been understood at all. So we are here for these women. We are here for the women who wake up out of nowhere with full body joint pain, and they used to run marathons, but now they can barely get down the block. And they don't know that it's menopause. We are here for women who, like myself, were walking around riddled with anxiety for years, waking up in the middle of the night, feeling like the world's going to end. I'm sorry, I just, little glitch. Anyway, speaking of anxiety, waking up in the middle of the night, feeling like the world's going to end, which honestly is all of us right now, especially right now. But they didn't know it was the hormones. I didn't know it was the hormones. There are women who are walking around in a cloud of brain fog, whose cognition is not working anymore, and they don't realize, because nobody told us, because nobody knew, because nobody was studying it, that our brains physically change during perimenopause. Our white matter, our gray matter, our brains physically change during this transition. That study just came out this year. Amanda Thebe will be talking about it in her presentation. All of these women have struggled for decades because nobody was talking about it, including the medical community. We are here to be lighthouses for these women and to talk about it, because I've seen the power of that. We've seen the power of that. We have gathered all these experts, some of which who have talked on the podcast, some will be new to you. because it makes a difference. Because knowledge is power. And when you know what's going on and you know what's behind it, and then you start to see some options for you, there's hope. And then there are things to try. I've seen it a million times in the show just in this year. A woman will hit the line and she'll be like, I guess it's over. She'll hit perimenopause and she'll have these symptoms like we just heard about, and she'll think, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And then she'll plug into the community and she'll hear some options. She'll hear someone that sounds just like her, or a doctor addressing just what she's going through. And so maybe she'll try some stuff. Maybe she'll try some ashwagandha for her runaway stress. Maybe she'll try some apps or some mindfulness and to get on top of her sleep. Maybe she'll finally find, like this woman, a menopause specialist who works with her, and she'll get on hormone therapy, and that pain will be gone. We're here to help all these women come out of the shadows, out of the stigma, out of the shame, out of all of that, and to move forward with hope, because we are here. There's an army of us here. We are the next thing. There is no other next thing. That next thing is us. And I'm so glad you're here with us. And speaking of the next thing, the next great thing, I am so thrilled to announce our keynote speaker for this evening, Rebecca Rusch. Rebecca is an adventure athlete. She's a 7-time world champion. She is an activist. She's a race promoter. She is a keynote speaker. She's an Emmy Award winner. She's a best-selling author, and she is the epitome of next. Rebecca didn't even start racing her mountain bike professionally until she was 38. All those records that many people have heard about, that was in her 40s. When many athletes are winding down, certainly in their 40s, definitely by 50, Rebecca is still scanning the horizon to see what she can do. And this year alone, that included going out and winning the 350-mile Iditarod Trail Invitational in Alaska. She did in my opinion, bananas expedition across the tundra of Iceland. And there's no stopping her. She's still going. She's got Rebecca's Private Idaho that she keeps expanding and will be in its 10th year next year. And I'm so thrilled that she decided to join us and share herself and share her wisdom. Tonight, I'd like to introduce the always amazing, always inspirational Rebecca Rusch.
Hi, Celine.
Hello, how are you?
Oh, that was really great. Thank you for that. I see in the comments, you're making people cry, you're making people laugh. And I have to say, for everyone here joining us, well, thank you for getting this together and all the energy that's been behind us. But I was especially excited to talk with Celine because we really are sisters from another mother. We've been teammates, we've been competitors, we're co-authors of a book together. We've cried, we've laughed, we've been in fights together. I literally,
It's one of my favorite stories.
But we truly are like sisters. And she's been a business mentor and a peer for all of my riding career. We met when I started bike racing, and Celine, I'm just so thankful for your passion and your longevity and your relevance, and you're continuing to push the envelope and be feisty in so many ways. And I really look forward to riding bikes with you again soon.
Excellent. Me too. I'll see you afterwards.
Bye. Yeah, so for everyone who's joining, thanks for being here. Celine and I will be coming back together at the end. We make a really good tag team. So we'll be doing any questions or answering any hot topics kind of as a duo after we talk. But so I wanted to first give you a little bit of background on me. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Celine. It was amazing. And I will just say, here's what I like to say. I don't like to say I'm 53 years old. I have really started saying I'm on version 5.3 of myself. So I'm on version 5.3. You're on whatever version you're on. Because as Celine talked about, age is sometimes discriminated against, or we have a perception of what does 50 look like, or what does 60 look like, or 70, or whatever. And I really like to think about, I'm a perpetual student and I'm always trying to learn. So are you. That's why you're here, is you want to learn and evolve. And so this is about your next version, 5.3, whatever it is, and making your next version the best version of yourself. Never in any other place would we look at, oh, you've got to nail it on the first try, or there's a quote that youth is wasted on the young. But it's not wasted is those of us who are experienced. And again, I don't say old, we're experienced. And what's not wasted on experienced people is their experience. It's one of the most valuable things that we have in our toolbox as we continue to evolve our versions of ourselves. So tonight, what I really want to talk to you about, and please stay on and ask questions afterwards. This is pretty informal, but I want to talk to you about what I'm calling the Explorer's Guide to Self-Discovery. So we'll go ahead and first slide up from Alaska. And I'll give you a little timeline. So Celine talked about, I started mountain biking professionally at age 38. I've been an athlete for my whole life, since high school, from running, climbing, paddling, most recently cycling. But yeah, 38 started mountain biking, 43 wrote my first book with Celine, 48 won an Emmy, and 52 version 5.2 really blew the doors off what I thought was possible, and had the best expedition of my entire life, which is what you see here in Alaska, riding self-supported through Alaska in the winter on a bike. And really, it's my proudest achievement as an athlete. And so that's just living proof, living example of that each version of ourselves can get a little bit better every time. But we need a trail map. We need a roadmap. And this is where I'm going to share a little bit of my process of going through, what I call my Explorer's Guide to Self-Discovery. And I'm a study of one, but I want to go through a little bit of my process of developing how to navigate, and how to navigate not just on the trail, but in life. And so I'm going to share some stories and experiences with you in hopes that you leave here. I'll leave you with a little bit of homework, but leave you with some tips and tricks to hopefully fast track you developing your own trail map in life. And so for years, I've been an athlete for 4 decades. Really, in the last 5 years, I've changed that word. How do I refer to myself? Typically, it's been, oh, I'm a professional athlete, but I've started using the word explorer, because for me, athlete is only part of it. It's the tool that I use, movement in the outdoors. That is the venue that I use for my learning, evolution. But really, I feel like I'm an explorer, and that's just much more encompassing. The athlete is part of it, but really it's the explorer that encompasses the whole thing. And people have asked me my entire career, why do you do these hard things? Why would you want to go to Alaska in the winter in minus 40-degree temperature? Your food is frozen, your water's frozen. Why would you want to do that? And I've been asked that my whole life. What are you searching for? What is it you're looking for? And I've been adventurous my whole life. I used to camp in the backyard as a kid in the suburbs of Downers Grove, Illinois, suburbs of Chicago. And so I've always had a curiosity as part of my motivation. And for 3 decades, I filled 3 passports. I went around the world. And I really thought the answer to that question of why was that I wanted to see the world. I was curious about what was over the next mountain, or around the next hill, or down the next river. And I filled 3 passports in 3 decades and did a lot of really cool exploring. But it really wasn't until what I call my liminal moment. And if you haven't heard the word liminal yet, it's one of my favorite words. It's basically a turning point, and being on the cusp of something, and a moment that really provides a dramatic shift for you. And we can go to the next slide. This is my liminal moment here in Laos, next to a tree along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Some map coordinates that I had from my dad when he crashed in the Vietnam War. His plane went down near the Ho Chi Minh Trail in 1972. And we're working on the slides. That's okay. But my liminal moment happened at age 46. So I've been an athlete for decades, won a bunch of stuff. stood on a lot of podiums, but at 46, I went to do a 1,000-mile ride, 1,200-mile ride through Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And I went looking for the place where my dad died. It was the first expedition where my experience as an athlete came together with sort of a family connection. And what happened on the trail there, it was quite life-changing. And I realize now that all the experience I've been doing, rock climbing, navigating, paddling, bike riding, those all were in preparation for this one really important ride. And it looks like maybe the slides aren't going to work, but that's okay. We can just chat. I can try to share my screen if the crew wants me to do that. Let me see if they're sending me a note. Okay, I'll just keep chatting. But anyway, so the liminal moment, age 46, beside a tree in Laos is where I really discovered what, oh, here we go. Cool, there's Alaska, there's Laos. And this quote that I put up here, and this really applies to all of us, is, my dad was shot down in 1972. I never got to know him. I was a young girl. I don't remember him. I heard stories about him. But at age 46, my career came together and my bike brought me to this place in the middle of the jungle. We had to get there by machete. And this quote that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. My dad has been there all along. That tree has been there all along. The Ho Chi Minh Trail has been there all along, but I wasn't ready to go down that trail yet and go down that route. And let's go ahead and flip to the next slide. What happened on that journey? Of course, it was an amazing journey. I connected with my family and a community and a Vietnamese athlete that I got to ride with, and really opened my eyes to the power of the bike and a bigger purpose, that my career was meant to be more than standing and on podiums or winning awards. Of course, those were important foundational aspects to my career, but the next phase, and like Celine says, what is next for you? Because we are next. The next phase is something I wasn't aware of. And coming home I've been back to Laos 4 times, meeting my dad essentially out there and connecting with him in that way connected me with my purpose and a bigger purpose. And since then, a foundation has been launched and some other things that really directly came from that. But more importantly, this concept of that I call dirt dharma. And it's basically where I find my authentic path and my purpose is when I'm moving around in nature on the earth. And so as we go through some of your homework, I'm going to ask you, where do you find your path? Where do you find the most clarity, the most aha moments, the most feeling of flow? And for me, it's on the dirt or in the snow, usually on 2 wheels, sometimes on 2 feet. But moving in nature is really the tool that I've used to kind of figure out my guide. And so what happened after Blood Road is, and after doing that ride, the biggest, most important ride of my life, we made a film, we had to go on film tour. What happened after that coincided almost directly, I can look back now, but coincided with a bunch of hormonal changes, age 48 now, when the film came out, going on film tour, is I went through probably a couple years of what I would describe as depression. And there were clusters of symptoms that are, very much as they describe depression. I didn't seek help for it. And at the same time, I was going through hormonal changes. So doing the biggest, most important ride of my life, most impactful ride of my life, left me, as Celine said, saying, well, what's next? How do I top that? Will I ever be competitive again? Can I win again? Do I care? And I started asking myself the original questions of why. What am I seeking? What am I doing this for? And I have a lifetime of experience learning how to navigate in the outdoors. I'm really good at not getting lost in the outdoors. But what I realized is I had no tools for navigating internally. And the reason that I kept exploring and reaching and couldn't really answer the question why is that I wasn't really exploring externally. I was seeing cool countries, Morocco, Pennsylvania, like all these places, riding with Celine, going all these places. So I was truly exploring, but I had avoided half of the equation, and I wasn't really exploring internally or consciously exploring internally. And so that period where I was going through menopause and going through coming off, a really, really big, impactful, life-changing liminal event, I didn't know how to process that, and I was unhappy. I wasn't exercising. I was losing weight. I was not sleeping, and it was a really hard couple of years for me. And so that, I like to, people call me the Queen of Pain, and they always ask about that nickname. And really, I really think of pain as a portal. And on the other side of that, whether it's a hard bike ride or going through a hard time in your life, on the other side of that pain is clarity and understanding. So I'm going to share a little bit of my process in hopes that for anyone who's going through something right now, and it's a never ending trail, we're always going to be going through something, but to provide you with some tools, some navigational tools, so that it doesn't feel like you're helpless, you're alone, you don't know where you're going, you're lost in the woods. And so some of my process in that period, it was, again, self-study by myself, because we're all strong, independent women. I didn't ask for a lot of help, but I started to develop some tools that I hadn't used before, like journaling, meditation, mindfulness, and breathing techniques. As Celine shared a story, I would go outside, in the darkest moments, and often it was just walking my dogs outside, but going outdoors and moving, even though I wasn't training the way that I wanted to be doing. And what happened from that is I started to develop a trail map for myself. And I'm going to share some of those things with you. Let's go ahead to the next slide. So in this process of a couple years, and now this was 6 years ago, that this liminal moment, standing by that tree, connecting with my dad, happened. And just now, 6 years later, I'm really starting to be able to articulate what happened and what happened on that trail. And part of my process was, and this might be something for you to use, was designing a logo that meant something for me. And these were doodles on a map. These map coordinates with that little red X, that's the actual map from Laos, the place where I've connected with my dad and with myself, and the compass. And we've been talking about navigation and just knowing that we are our own navigator. Even if there isn't a trail, you can grab a machete and get out there and start hacking through the woods. But I designed this logo to remind myself that, we're all seeking, we're all looking, we aren't all lost, and we just need some navigational tools. So what I did, let's go ahead to the next slide, is I went through a process, and this is the homework that I'm going to give you. So maybe grab a pen, and it's easy homework. It's really cool, but it's really to understand you. And so what I did when I was struggling through that period is I wrote down the 5 or 10 pivotal moments in my life. And so if you think back, for me, it was joining the high school cross-country running team was really pivotal, because that's where I found sport. Being an exchange student in Australia, moving from Chicago to California, learning to rock climb and opening up a rock climbing gym, living out of my car so I could go adventure racing, taking up cycling, buying a home here in Idaho and finding a home. So I wrote down, 5 or 10 things in your life that are your really big pivotal moments. They don't necessarily have to be the best things. Some of them, it might be leaving a job, getting a divorce, whatever it is, and write those things down. And then the next process that I went through, and this is something that I did myself, but it really works, and I've shared it with other people. And so then the second step, first step, your pivotal moments. Second step, and those are the moments that either make you laugh, cry, take your breath away. And they don't have to be dramatic. It might just be like you went out to dinner and, with a friend, and that's where you met your husband. It doesn't have to be a really significant thing, but the outcome is something, or the way that it made you feel was significant. So then in these 5 or 10 pivotal moments in your life, Then I went, and you can start looking for themes in the experiences. So these are some of the themes that I came up with, is when I looked at, moving, leaving a dream job, running a rock climbing gym in California that I'd helped build, deciding to quit that job and move into my car and go rock climbing and adventure racing. That was a pivotal moment for me that led to some amazing things. And so I started to see themes of risk, passion, giving, and focus, or less equals more. So I started to see the patterns in these experiences. They all had some sort of risk. They made my hands sweat. They made me nervous. I was scared. Like, what if this doesn't work? Passion is another really big one. Well, let's go back to the risk for a second. So risk is kind of a dirty word for some people, and it's a 4-letter word. It's like, oh yeah, we should all take risk. And I'm going to tell you, I'm a little bit risk averse. And the way that I take risk is there's a plan, there's a safety net. What does happen if, I quit my job, I move into my car, what happens if it doesn't work? Well, then I just go back and get another job. So I did always have a bit of a plan B. And often the reward of what I thought I was signing up for was quite different than what I thought the outcome was going to be. And so this was one of the first criteria. And I call these my navigational handrails. So in navigation, if anyone remembers a paper map and compass instead of on your phone, but in navigation, there's a term called handrails. And so when you're trying to find your way through something, maybe there's not a trail, you're trying to find your way, and you look for things that are really obvious and don't move, like a river, or like a peak, or a ridge line. And those become basically your handrails. So somewhere that you're going to you might bump around in the middle, navigating, bushwhacking, whatever, but you've got those handrails that still generally keep you in the right compass direction. So I call these 4 equations here my navigational handrail. So when I'm faced with a decision, I don't know what to do, I refer back to these, and they help guide me. And usually I try to hit 3 out of 4 of them, or at least 2 out of 3 of them. But if something doesn't hit, if it only hits 1 mark, it's probably not going to be something that I'm going to make a decision for. And at this point in our lives, we have a lot of opportunities. And I think for most of us, it's actually what to say no to. And so I use these navigational handrails in my decision making. So is there an amount of risk or excitement or scariness in what I'm doing? Is there passion in it? And I really want to talk about passion. People throw that word around a lot. And if anyone has read the book, The Art of the Impossible, it's pretty amazing, by Stephen Kotler. He talks about the actual neuroscience behind motivation, and how you get into a flow state, and how you operate at peak performance. And passion is one of the key indicators of success. And what's involved with passion is anything where you're stimulating curiosity, or desire, or love, or anything like that is just like, oh, that seems kind of amazing. If you have that sort of feeling and sensation about something, that is a powerful neurological cocktail for motivation. And so passion is really one of the most important things in paving your own way, making your own trail map. Give equals get. That's the third one. And that is really about giving back. And it doesn't mean you're volunteering, for a nonprofit or whatever it might mean. I mean, I've done a lot of those things, but what's really exciting, and I can give an example of standing on the finish line of Private Idaho and watching people complete their first 100-miler on a gravel bike, and tears are streaming down my face because they're crying, they're excited. And that is just as powerful for me as standing on a podium of my own. And so, there's actually also psychologist Michael Gervais talks about, there's actual proof that one of the best ways to combat depression is with service and purpose. So actually thinking of someone else and giving to someone else instead of yourself, it pulls the focus away from what's spinning in your head. And often the reward, you think you're giving to someone else, but you're really giving to yourself when you put in that part of the equation. And then the fourth one that really I work hard on is less equals more, the fourth navigational handrail. And that's about focus and attention and less distraction in our world, and doing something 80, 90, 100% instead of doing a bunch of things at 40 or 30%. And that's where the decision making gets really hard. We all want to do a ton of amazing things, but there is only so much time in the world. And part of our process is we need to take care of ourselves first, our family, our homes, and then get out into the world and do all these other cool projects. But first, there has to be the time for yourself. Otherwise, you're not a good parent. You're not your best at work. You're not your best self if you're exhausted and putting too much on your plate. So those are my navigational handrails. What's been interesting since I developed them, I started to learn that there is actually neuroscience that backs all of these motivators and backs the reasons behind, why I chose these things. Again, the way that I chose them was just looking at pivotal moments in my life, big moments in my life, and looking for patterns, looking for how did that moment make me feel when I got married? How did it feel when I swam the Grand Canyon? And so those are the ways for you to start to develop your own navigational handrails. Remember, step 1 is your pivotal moments. And then step 2 are, what are the themes? How did it make you feel? What were the results? What went on in your heart and your head? And then step 3 is you'll start to develop your navigational handrails for navigating life. And, we have 3 intellectual centers in our body. Which is kind of fun. So let's go to the next slide, actually. So there's 3 intellectual centers in your body. You've got your gut. We all know this. Your gut instinct. You've got your heart, and then you've got your head. And we make decisions with all 3 of those things. Many of us get caught up here in the head, and we're buzzing with, should I do this? Should I do that? Da, 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 da. So what I might encourage you to do as you're thinking about your navigational handrails is try to think with your brain, of course, and your head, but also try to think with your heart and your gut. Because I often think that we have the answers inside ourselves of what's right for us, but we get talked out of it through media or through articles or people saying this or that or the other. And so I would encourage you, as you build your navigational handrails, think about your 3 intellectual centers, and really your heart and gut become your main compass. They become the guiding compass, and sort of the tactics and tools to follow your compass, those might come from the head. So this is my classroom. I talked to you a bit about the Iditarod Trail that I did this winter. And then also this is an expedition across Iceland. And I was invited. So this winter were my 2 biggest winter expeditions of my life. And just really in the last 4 years or so, really in alignment with developing my navigational handrails and my sort of explorer's guide to self-discovery. In tandem with that, I started getting really involved with winter bike expeditions. And I'll tell you right now, I'm really bad in the cold. I have very poor circulation. I have lung issues when I get into the cold. I've always hated the cold. I actually don't really like it. But the last 4 years, it became apparent as I really went inward and went exploring into my heart and my gut, became apparent that that first navigational handrail, risk equals reward, is that I hadn't done a really committing expedition in a very long time. I hadn't done anything that really scared me, that really had the level of commitment that winter expeditions have. And there is no room for error out there, because you're carrying all your own equipment. There is no cell phone to call for self-rescue. And I really wanted to put I want to put myself to the test performance-wise, physically, but also mentally, because I started to develop some new performance habits that have been really interesting. And so my classroom, I talked a little bit about, coming through Blood Road in a dark period. I did start meditating. I started working on breathing techniques. I started working on journaling and mindfulness. And I started to realize that I've been doing that on the bike all along, but I hadn't consciously been using those mindfulness tools in my life or even on the bike. And so I went to these cold environments, one for the committing aspect of, we rise to our very best performance when we do something that's scary and hard. And so as you're thinking about what's next for you, when you commit to something big and audacious and scary that you also have passion about, you are going to rise to a level that you haven't seen before and another version of yourself. So I went to Alaska, I went to Iceland, and I've been studying. And the first year I went to Alaska, I finished the race and I was on the finish line in tears, a mess, because I didn't execute well. I'm not proud of that first year. I survived. That was my only goal, was to survive, but I did do it well because I wasn't prepared to sleep outside. I didn't want to be there. I was really internally focused on like how horrible it was going to be. Year number 2, I knew I could go back and do it better. And year number 3, this last year, I went back and I won the women's division. I was 6th overall. But more importantly, I went and executed the ride. No other person did it out there except my husband, executed the ride fully self-supported. So that meant that we were the only athletes that didn't go inside a shelter. We didn't get any outside food. We didn't get any water from the lodges. So we're making fires every night, fully committed to survival in the Alaskan wilderness. And it's the best expedition of my life. And the reason it was at such a high level, and I'm version 5.3 of myself, is that I fully committed to it. And I brought in new tools, not just training as hard as I can train, but I brought in energy work, breathing, mindfulness, preparation. And that's why I say, that youth is wasted on the young, but experience is not wasted on the experienced people. And so taking your biggest asset, which is experience and learning and being an explorer yourself, it's a very, very powerful cocktail. And it's really exciting. All right, so let's go to the next slide. So your classroom, I talked about my classroom a little bit. And so now when people ask me, why do you go to Alaska? Why do you go do these things? It's not only that I'm exploring externally. Of course, I want to see Alaska in the winter and literally howl with the wolves. But I'm also exploring myself. And that is my internal classroom as well. That is the place where I'm the most clear, I'm the most focused, and I'm a really good version of myself. And then the next step is taking that classroom back to the rest of your life. So I'll ask you, I'm going to ask you a few questions here at the end and then leave you with your homework. But one is, how do you define yourself? And this was important for me to define myself as an explorer, not just an athlete. So if you could think of one word, who am I? And it might not be your career or whatever, but jot some words down. And this is a process. It doesn't, you won't get it on the first try. It's a process, but what's your elevator pitch? How do you define yourself? And then number 2, where's your classroom? Where are you doing your best learning? And if you can figure that out, go there. For me, it's movement in nature, dirt dharma. That is the trail, the outdoors, movement outside. That is my classroom. And so I go there frequently, whether it's for 15 minutes to walk my dogs or for 6 days in Alaska. I go to the classroom to be a perpetual learner. And then number 3, finding your compass with your heart and your gut, and then developing the navigational handrails with your mind and with your brain. And so drawing your own trail map, the next version of you, it's not a hard process, but it is a process. So if you think about any business, any company, any seminar, any podcast, they start with a mission statement. They start with a purpose statement. So what came from my navigational handrails was my own personal mission statement. And you can see that here: to continually inspire, empower, and challenge myself and others. Super important, the self and others part of it, to be good. And the words "be good," that's how my dad signed his letters home from the Vietnam War. And that's really become my mantra, so that I have a guiding compass. I have a map. I might be bumping around in the woods, stumbling over logs and things, but at least I have a map and a compass. So as we leave you and you think about what makes you feisty, I really hope you'll take your homework and think about what makes you extra special as well, and what does fire you up? What are your navigational handrails? Where do you find your best classroom? And what kind of classmates can you bring into that classroom? I mean, we've started here with this kind of summit and gathering with like-minded women, but take it internal as well. And sport happens to be my tool for discovery, but I'm really excited to hear, what your tools of discovery are, because we truly are explorers. You wouldn't be here if you weren't interested in being the next best version of yourself. And so with that, I would love to tell you all, be good. And I'm going to bring back my good friend Celine Yeager so we can tell stories and chat and answer any questions.
That was lovely.
Thanks, Celine.
Thank you.
Does it make you want to join me out in Alaska?
Well, I can't say it's gone that far. It is remarkable. I mean, did you start with like Jay Petterberry's camps? Like, how did you start with the snow?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I'd said all along, I'm never doing anything in the snow, never doing anything in the snow. And there's a really well-known endurance athlete, Jay Peterberry, who lives in Idaho, and he's got these winter camps. So I just he kept inviting me. He was a really great instigator. And a lot of times, and you did the same for me, Celine, with the book, a lot of times your friends and other people see in you what you don't admit to yourself yet. And Jay kept saying, you could do it, just come give it a try, and the same with the book, Celine. You're like, you can do it, we'll do it together. And so often listening to your friends and your peers is sometimes a better gauge of what's possible for you than yourself. We are our own worst enemies. We use the worst language on ourselves that we would never use, to another human being, even a stranger. And so reframing your internal dialogue is really important. But if you're not there yet, listening to other people give you a pep talk and let you know it's possible is also really important.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that it's such a powerful message, I find, coming from you, especially because, you've redefined yourself, because, professional athlete implies one thing, as opposed to the adventurer. And I know that was not an easy process, to get through that. Like, that's figuring out your identity as you go on. And I think that this is such an important talk right now, because a lot of the women in this community are bumping up against that. They're bumping up against that. What does this mean? Who am I? What am I doing? Maybe they've been marathoners their whole life, and they're just like, is this still me? Is this still what am I getting out of this? Is this still what I want to do? Do I want to do something else? I think we can get stuck into what other people's perceptions of us are and what other people identify us as. And it can be really hard to overcome what other people's definitions of you and that you have sort of built.
Well, an identity, that's super important thing to consider. And yeah, we're all like, oh, you're an athlete, you're an author, you're this, you're that. People want to label and put someone in a box. But what I really want to encourage everyone listening to hear is that, yes, you're an athlete, yes, you're an author. Those things are building blocks for the next thing. And so that one thing doesn't go away. That shaped you. Me being a high school athlete, me being a runner in high school and college, it's not gone from me. It was a foundational part of the whole beautiful mix that comes later. And so as you evolve your identity, something doesn't necessarily go away. It's part of the equation that is like building to something cool. And think of it as a pyramid. And you've got all this stuff that you've done, your experiences in life that shape you. We are shaped by our experiences. And so you don't lose something. You open the door to something else, but you were launched by being a runner, being a this, being a that, whatever that thing is. You're on to the next thing, but with still that a part of you. It's still in your DNA.
Right. And how far I know for myself, sometimes I would never even be able to see where I'm going, right? Like, I would never have thought I was becoming a podcaster. Like, that wasn't anywhere, but I'm a storyteller, right?
Yeah.
And it's just another evolution of being a storyteller.
Well, and
In
that's exactly what I was trying to get at with people with their homework is not necessarily a label of who you are. Because yeah, you wouldn't have said 5 years ago, I'm a podcaster, but you are a storyteller. And so that led you down to another thing. And so these navigational handrails, they're a little bit broad, but they're based on who you are in your heart and soul.
Right.
And that will lead you to podcasts, to writing, to whatever, chef, being a chef, to whatever it is. So you don't have to know right now, I'm going to be a podcaster in 5 years. I've never known my 5 year plan, my 10 year plan, but I do know what makes me feel good and like I'm suited for neurologically and
Right.
in my soul.
So there's two questions coming in. There's definitely one. Well, there's two that are definitely for you. There's one about this one. For 15 years, I was an endurance athlete, thrived through activity. Perimenopause has knocked the mojo out of me. I'm struggling to get that back. We have a actual talk just on that because a lot of women hit that. How do you overcome that? Honestly, is working through that, is giving yourself that grace, as you're going to hear, and maybe taking a step back from rigidly defining yourself as whatever your sport is. Like, I am an Ironman. Like, what do you like about Ironman? What can you do for a while you're working through the symptomology? It's a tunnel. It's not forever, but it helps not to just keep banging your head against it while you're having all these symptoms, and while you are knocked back on your heels a bit. Just like, take a breather and say, okay, this is where I'm at. That's cool. I did all that stuff. What would be fun to do right now? Like totally just put down some of the other stuff and be gentle with yourself and think of, like, what would I like to do right now? That's how I would answer that question.
Yeah, and I also think, Celine, knowing, so I'm postmenopausal, having
I
some
am
of the
too
best
right now.
performances of
Yeah.
my life, putting out great power numbers, training with a coach. So also knowing that, there's a bit of a struggle sometimes in the middle of a lot of these hormonal fluctuations, but that, like Celine said, it's not a cave, it's a tunnel. And knowing that athletes are performing, you will get your body back, you will or you will evolve and be an athlete again, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. And I think
Yeah.
seeing examples of that all across every sport, like all those women that you showed, Celine, at various stages. So having the confidence of knowing, like, might be really tough right now, but it's not forever.
Yeah. There's a question. What is your inner mantra when you encounter someone that tries to impose ageism on you?
Do you have one? You want to take that first?
I think the funny thing about that is that I bet you felt the same way, is that it blindsided me. Like, I didn't realize that I was supposed to be too old to be doing the stuff that we were doing when we were in our 40s. So
Mm-hmm.
people would, like, make these odd comments to me, and I'd be like, I think they're saying I'm old. But it took a while for me to even recognize that they were, like, I couldn't even process it right away. So I don't have an inner mantra. Honestly, I'm just like, I don't know, fuck that. Like, that's that's my inner mantra. It's not very eloquent, but that's kind of it. Like, this is it.
Yeah.
This is like,
Well,
you
and
don't get to
honestly, own
define me.
yourself. This is
Yeah.
me. This is who we are. Every person that is imposing that on you is going to be your age. Hopefully, they live to be your age or our version. And I mean, part of it is it's not giving people your energy, like putting your energy in positive places. And I've really started to learn that if someone's critical of me, like, how do I feel about myself? Am I proud of my performance and who I am at version 5.3? Yes. And if I can answer that to myself and the people that matter to me, then the people that don't matter to me, then that's okay. I'll spend my time elsewhere. And I think it's important to choose communities that lift you up instead
Hmm.
of break you down.
That's why we're here. Big
Mhm.
thing. Like, it's huge. It's everything. It is everything. That's a great answer.
I also think too, showing instead of telling. What I would answer that person, I would just, I wouldn't answer. I might say some words like Celine said, but really it's showing and being like, all right,
Yeah.
well, this is my body of work. And, no, it's so you would never ask a lawyer at age 50, like, hey, when are you going to retire? Or you wouldn't ask a sportscaster or a writer, or like, you just
Yeah.
don't do it. But as Celine said, there is sexism and ageism put together for women. And so we just show them that this is how it looks and that they're wrong.
I like that. They're wondering what the KT tape on your face was for. That's frostbite, right?
Yeah, so that's called frost tape. It's basically the same as KT tape, but yeah, any exposed skin in those temperatures freezes. And so it's hard to keep a face mask up and all that, because then your glasses fog and you can't get food in your mouth and you can't eat or drink. So that is skin protection from the elements.
Has your nutrition changed at all through this transition?
My nutrition has changed. It's gotten a lot better. And I started focusing on, and I've always had decent nutrition, but
You kind of froze on us. There you go.
oh, can you hear me? Are you
I
frozen?
can. Yeah, you froze a little
Okay.
bit, but go ahead. You always had decent nutrition, but
Yeah, but I've started to focus more on what I call the spaces in between. So we feel better when we're hydrated. We feel better. And so again, all those things that I would do on the bike, like I'd eat and drink perfectly on the bike, and then I get off the bike and sort of like eat like crap or not hydrate. And so just as we mature, all that other stuff is super important, because it really does. You just kind of can't skimp on it anymore like you could when you were 20. And so I do pay more attention to my nutrition, a lot more. I cook a lot at home and really try to focus on hydration and take a few supplements. Celine's the expert on some supplements. I don't take a lot, but a few key ones. And I've actually been using, it's really interesting, I've been using a thing called Inside Tracker, that are a blood test to really just keep track of what's going on the inside, and things that I thought I was fine, but then realizing, oh, I have some deficiencies. So I think education is really important. I thought I was going to get all A's when I did the blood test, and I was like,
I didn't get A's.
Oh my God, like wait a minute.
I'm an A student too. I didn't get A's.
I didn't. And so I was like, oh, I have a little work to do. So I think that awareness is really important. And, why not find out now that, hey, you're deficient on vitamin D. Okay, great. I can do something about that, because those little things do add up. And so I paid more attention to detail in my nutrition in that way.
Excellent. Quick follow-up is how long that tape stays on your face. I don't know.
Oh, the whole event. Yeah, it stays on forever. Well, not forever, we take it off.
It's off now.
Yeah, but no, it's amazing. It stays on really well, and it's a nice skin coverage. Not everyone likes it. It makes you look tough, though. I think it looks pretty hardcore.
No, it's pretty badass. Do we have any other questions? I don't know if we're I don't know what our time is here. Maybe one of our people will tell us.
Well,
what is are you working on something now you can tell us about?
Am I working? Well, this whole concept of the Explorer's Guide to Self-Discovery is definitely something I'm working on expanding on. So thank you for letting me practice with some of the homework that I gave you. I am hopefully doing a big ride this weekend in Idaho. And then I also have a ride in November. If anyone's at the Rome events in Sedona, women's mountain bike event, I'll be there. And then I'm doing a really big ride in November on the Hopi and Navajo Nations, a 400-mile ride in Arizona that I'm really excited about, kind of an educational ride.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, yeah, and thank you. We do have a discount for Inside Tracker. Not that if anyone wants to pop in, you just put my name in and you get 25% off if you're into checking that out. And then there's an Inside Tracker for Feisty Menopause too. Perfect.
Yeah, we have all the codes, all the discount codes. Just how has your recovery changed? That was a question that popped up.
My recovery has changed in really prioritizing sleep and again, tracking it, knowing what's going on, knowing how my sleep is, prioritizing getting in bed early. I use an eye mask. I use a grounding mat that's under my bed. That's like
what
really
is that?
It's pulsed. It's called the Beamer, and it's pulsed electromagnetic frequency. So it's a really low frequency electromagnetic frequency. And what it's doing is moving circulation. And as
Huh.
we get older, as we mature, the small, tiny micro capillaries and all that, the circulation gets sluggish in some of those areas. And so this mat, you don't even feel anything, but you lay on it and there's a real low frequency that improves circulation and recovery. So I do that. And I take more days off. I take 2 days off a week from fully off from training.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm
Yeah, I
training
do too. I have found 2 days sometimes is
yeah,
like, because then you can, like, actually train instead of sort of slog.
totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, 2 full days off from training. And I think really the recovery as at this stage in my life, it's more about not about the recovery from the bike. It's about the recovery from life and all
Oh,
of the
boy.
other things and
It's much
energy and
harder.
right. And all the stuff that we're being bombarded with that is taking our attention and focus. And so my recovery does involve turning off digital, doing 10 minutes of headspace in the morning, walking my dogs without my phone, doing some breathing exercises
Mm,
just for 5. Like I'm walking and doing breathing exercises when I walk
right.
my dogs. And I find those things are really important just to like shed some of the other stress that we're getting in our life because we're overloaded with
Yeah.
stimulation.
Yeah. And it is a lot, it is a lot, like, I feel like, I mean, our parents are getting older, like, all that stuff that life kind of, like, brings. It's a lot. It's a
It's
lot.
a lot. And I think recognizing that your body doesn't know the difference between you running a marathon or cranking out all these projects at home and life and doing the laundry and doing this and coming back and we're exhausting ourselves. And that's that less equals more
Yeah.
navigational tool that I really try to focus on.
There's a couple of very specific questions that I don't even know what it means. Oh, traditional maybe? When you were rock climbing, what kinda do you focus on mostly? Sport, boulder,
So
something?
I owned a rock climbing gyms, Recreation. If anybody is in LA, or I helped open those up. So that was all sport climbing, indoor climbing. But my real love was doing traditional and like alpine climbing and big, huge rock climbs, like in the Sierras and stuff.
And, like,
So
El Cap.
yeah, and El Cap, exactly. And yeah, Kate, it's the Beamer device is what I was talking about, which is that pulsed electromagnetic frequency grounding pad. Ah, what other
We have
questions?
we have more someone wants more specifics on the nutrition. I don't I'm not sure. I think those are hard questions to answer sometimes. Like, mine has changed some too, but I'm just a little more like you, like, I cook too, right?
Mhm,
Like, I do a lot of cooking and I make. So I'm more careful about making sure that my, activity is fueled, so
mhm,
I'm a little like I'm not as haphazard about it, like, if I'm going to have a 3-hour ride, I make sure I eat. I make sure I
mhm,
eat before, I make sure I eat during it, I make sure I eat after. I make sure I don't go into states of, like, low energy availability just because I know
mhm.
that that's, like, harder and it just blunts your recovery, right? And it kinda hurts your workout.
Yeah.
And make sure you get the protein you need, and I just try to eat more, not having, like, popcorn and wine for dinner, like the kind
Dude,
you know what
I've
I mean?
totally done that.
Yeah. I think I was there with you, like, it's okay once in a while, but, yeah, it's just like it's a more conscious.
Or if you're gonna do that, drink athletic greens or something on
There
the
you
side
go.
so that you
Chase
you got
it
your
chase it with
green.
something nutritious. So you have fiber, you have your nutrients. How do you harness negative thoughts when you're doing something tough? There you go.
That's a big one. That
That
voice
is a
in
big
our
one.
head is really and it's kind of a never-ending process. The conversation we have with ourselves. Often when and this is kind of I had a conversation with Michael Gervais the other day and he asked the difference between Alaska year 1 and Alaska year 3, which was a mess versus the best performance of my life. And I was better prepared. I had a little more knowledge, but really my internal dialogue was different.
Mhm.
It was less about me and like, this is cold. I hate this. This hurts. Why am I doing this? And it was more about, wow, look at the mountains and look at what's happening around me. I'm able to do this. My body's able to do this. Wow, my husband's here with me. I turned the conversation outward instead of inward. And that's, it's basically a gratitude practice that people talk about all the time. And I think and a little bit about that giving back, when we focus less on ourselves, we often perform better. And I found a good example of this is when I would do 24-hour solo mountain bike races, and I'd pre-ride the course, and I wasn't technically that great, and I beat myself up all during it, and I suck. I shouldn't even be doing this. I have to walk this section. But then during the night, when you're 12, 14, 15 hours into the race, so you're physically more fatigued, but it's also dark. And so all you can see is your headlight, and you don't see the distractions anymore. And I would ride these sections that I had walked before, and I'm like, wait, where was that hard section? And it was a really good example of when you get out of your way and stop talking to yourself in a negative voice, that then things happen. And often you need to be either physically tired to hear it, or riding in the dark, or go do something hard. Or another friend is, a lot of times riding is a good example of like trying to do a trail that is too hard for me. And Celine's a good example of this. I mean, we race together, and technically Celine's a better technical rider than me. And I'd just be like, I just need to follow you. Like I just need to follow your line so that I don't have to think, and I can get out of the thinking. So often just removing your brain from the story, or reframing it in what is good about the situation. Okay, I'm alive. My toes aren't frozen. And Alaska is another example. Okay, I was lost in Alaska, year number 2, half an hour into the race. I made a massive navigational error and was out of the contention right from the beginning. And it was like, I had a pity party for a while and was going to quit and just go back to the start. And then it was like, nope, I'm here. I'm prepared. I've got my stuff. And so we all have the option to reframe our thinking. And even sometimes if you don't believe it and you still are thinking that you suck, you need to not say it, because it actually isn't serving you. It's gonna truly make you suck if you're telling yourself that you suck. And so that conversation has to change in whatever tactic that you can use. Sometimes I pretend like I'm talking to a friend of mine instead of myself, and I speak to myself like I'm not there, or in the third person, and be like, well, Rebecca, but I insert, okay, Celine, like I pretend like it's somebody else. And what would I say to Celine if she were right here in the same situation with me? And I try to use those words on myself and give myself a little pep talk that way.
Yeah, no, that's good. Reframing is super important, because I mean, it's the old mantra that we all use, right? Like, no matter how good or bad you feel, it won't last when you're out there that long. And I just try to remind myself of that. Like, I'm in the tunnel. It's not forever, and the only way out of the tunnel is through the tunnel, and try to see some beautiful stuff while you're in the tunnel.
Even if it's dark.
Even if it's really dark. And it's like Willy Wonka, and it's really scary. But the tunnel will end. Do you incorporate strength training into your training, Rebecca?
I do. Yeah. And I think that's especially important for just longevity and feeling good lifelong. I chop wood, I swim, I Nordic ski, I cross country ski in the winter, and add some strength. I'm on the fire department. And so it doesn't have to be anything fancy. We've got a kettlebell and a few bands and things in our basement that serve a really good purpose. But like push-ups and pull-ups are kind of like a basic. I've got a pull-up bar and I do push-ups. And
do you follow structure for that at all? Like, does your coach give you that at all, or you just kind of work it in?
Sometimes I do. Yeah. If I'm training for something specific, it's part of my structured training a couple times a week. But other times I'll just, often I'll just I'll do 10 push-ups before I go to bed, or just do something like that. If I'm like, oh, I haven't done anything in a while. So it takes, just like normal training, like bike training, it kind of ebbs and flows from being really specific sometimes, but then also being a little bit more loose in other times. And I think that's important for people. None of us are like super great at staying on a schedule 365 days a year. So plan, for those arcs. But I do think, kind of regular strength training, and it can be simple. Like I said, push-ups in your front yard after you finish a bike ride while you're on the grass. It
Right.
doesn't have to be a big deal, and you don't have to have a gym or a fancy membership to do it. And there's so many good strength apps and programs that
Oh
have
my
little
God.
20-minute things. My husband and I
Totally.
sometimes do, little 20-minute, like, let's go do a workout together, and it's kind of fun. And yeah, there's so many tools for that, and you don't need any equipment for it.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's
Celine, you probably have science behind the, what our muscles are doing and the importance of strength training. I know that Stacy there's a lot of scientific proof that it is really important
it's really
to
important.
continue to strength train as we get older.
Totally. And that's one of the questions was asking about the whole menopausal transition. And you, when you were on Hit Play Not Pause, it talked about, and when I saw you, I noticed it when during that time, I was like, because we have both been very muscular women, and I could tell that you had lost muscle.
Yeah.
And, when you lose estrogen, because estrogen is anabolic, so when that goes away, like it's harder to synthesize muscle tissue. I mean, it's that simple. And it can be kind of precipitous. So did you take any actions at that point where you saw that you were like having that muscle loss?
Not really, because that was during that time, like I said, that I talked about, where I was pretty down across the
Right.
board. And so I was just
And there could have
like,
been hormones at work there. That could have been a double whammy of you
it
finishing this
was,
epic thing in your
it
life
was.
and also having these
It
hormone
was a
fluctuations.
double, triple whammy of career, big expedition, hormonal changes, and I didn't really recognize all of it at the time, and sort of
Yeah.
struggled my way through it. And so no, I didn't at the time realize what was going on. I was basically, here's what I thought, and this was a negative, voice that was in my head. And we're like, well, my life is a mess. I'm depressed. All these things are happening, and well, at least I'm not getting fat and I'm not big. But it was the flip side, is that I was losing muscle, and I was, not getting big because I was actually deteriorating because of hormonal changes. And so I can look back now and be like, yeah, I should have been doing push-ups and stuff. But when you're in a state like that, you aren't always thinking of the best self-care. You aren't thinking of, it's easy to keep all these things up when everything's going well.
Hmm.
And it's easy to eat well and hydrate and do your push-ups and do your exercise and get to sleep on time. Where it starts to tumble and can really snowball is if things aren't going well in your world, you're in a bit of a cave, and you've
Yeah.
got to be your own navigator, your own paramedic, your own first responder to get yourself out of it. And the tools of that we often use to self-medicate, like drinking wine and eating popcorn, aren't going to help us. They're really just going to
Hmm.
make that tunnel longer.
Yeah.
And so if you are in those states, and we're always going through them, trying to eat, trying to sleep, trying to move in the outdoors, community and talking to people, or like I said, giving back a little bit and pulling the focus away from yourself, those are surefire ways to shorten the tunnel, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Do you get in a flow state during your races? I do on a good day. Not everyone.
I do get in a flow state, and it's why I keep going back there, because it's very addictive. Anyone who's experienced a flow state, you want to experience all the time. And I referenced a book, The Art of Impossible, that is all about how to more readily put yourself in a flow state, whether it's as a creative writer or a
Hmm.
parent or any sort. It doesn't have flow state, we kind of reserve for like athletes, but it's in anything that you're doing where you are focused, you're motivated, time sort of stands still.
Yeah.
And I can most easily access that. My flow trigger is yeah, movement in the outdoors and going for days. And because it strips away a lot of the distraction, the noise in my brain, and other things. And it's a pretty cool book if you haven't read it, but a lot of us have experienced it, but it was like, oh, how did that happen? How do I get it again? And there are specific neurochemicals that are released that when we do the right actions, they produce best performances. It's a lot of what we're talking about here today.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that once you've sort of accessed it, it's like it can be elusive, but it's also like it's a well-worn path in your brain, right? Like when you know
Right.
where it is, it's like a little easier. For me, it's definitely on my mountain bike because I mean, you've ridden here, it's very technical. Like you have to be present. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're not present, you're not going to have a good ride. It's not,
Mhm.
you might have a really bad ride. So, I mean, that has been useful for me. We have a question if we are on any hormones. I am not.
No, me neither.
Yeah, no, I have not been. And that's not to say I'm against them. Like if I like in my, in my little talk, if I had full body joint pain and all of that, I would be first person in line, right? Like to deal with that. But there was nothing that drove me to pursue that. So do not.
Same.
Oh, hey.
Hi.
Hey.
I came on the stream. Rebecca, oh my gosh. I've been a super fan for a long time, but now I'm like even more of a super fan. That was so amazing. Thank you so much for
Oh, it's so
that. And
fun
for
to like kick off this amazing weekend. I can't wait to hear all the other speakers.
you were exactly the perfect thing that we need to kick off with, because if we don't understand our internal compass, like nothing else matters, right? So thank
Well,
you
and for
so much.
everyone listening, if you want to share any of your mission statements or navigational handrails or any of your homework throughout this weekend, stick it on the social media, drop it in the comments. I would love to hear your process as you work through that.
Awesome.
Yes. And there is a booth in our expo, Rebecca's Be Good booth. So go check that out for sure. Find out more about the foundation. All right. Celine,
Hey,
we've had
what's
a
up?
night. I have my happy hour drink that I'm well into.
I have not been able to leave to get a happy hour drink. Maybe I will text somebody in my house to see if they can get a happy hour drink.
So it wouldn't be a Feisty Summit without some technical difficulties, which not only did we have, like, we couldn't get the live stream to go to our Hopin platform where we're doing our live summit. Also, my internet just completely stopped for like 10 minutes there. So I just came back on. I don't know if you were like, where did she go? And also
you
my
popped
audio.
in.
I did. My
Briefly.
audio had completely
like,
gone off and I was trying to get it to
hello.
reset. Tonight's the night we get all of our technical issues sorted out. But we are gonna, so if you're watching us and you are not signed up for the summit, you just got a tiny little taste of what you're gonna see this weekend. You can still sign up. It's not too late. All the replays are going to be available until the end of December. And we have a whole lineup of incredible speakers that are coming up. If you are signed up, I know this is a little weird. We tested this. We're so sorry. We thought we had all the technology worked out, but there was some kind of little glitch tonight. But everything should work tomorrow because we're not going to try to go live to any other platform. So there won't be any of these issues. We're all going to go back over to the Hopin platform, though, the whole Feisty team. And we're going to hang out over there. Celine and I don't know if you know this, we're going to go hang out in the Feisty booth. So if you want to talk with us, we're going to be in the fight. You get your drink, your happy hour drink first. We're going to be in the Feisty booth.
Good. Thank you.
Hanging out with our bevies. We're going to give away a hoodie at the Feisty booth. I have my Feisty hoodie on. I'm also going to give away an annoying dog that is whining next to me right now. If anybody's looking for a dog, if you can hear that. And then there's also some codes in the Feisty booth where you can get some cool. This is Stacy's Lift Heavy shirt.
Love those.
And there's some Feisty tanks. So there's a code where you can get some discounts in the Feisty store. You can go hang out on any of the expo booths, but one of the most fun things you can do tonight is to go get your bevy and go to the networking. So what you'll do when you log back into Hopin is you'll go to networking over on the side. Now, this is a little like speed dating, and some of you have been married for like 30 years, so you're like, what the hell? But you're going to go in. It's going to match you just with somebody. You're going to have like 3 minutes to talk, and then it'll move you to somebody else. Or you can be like, I'm really having a great time, and I want to stay and hang out with this person. And at the end, you can share your contact information, which is really fun. Did you network? You networked last time we did this conference, right, Celine?
I did not. I was not there. So I'm clear. I'm just going into the networking, or am I going into a booth?
So if you want to come say hi to Celine and I to ask any more questions, come over to the Feisty booth. if you just want to network and meet other people, which is
Gotcha.
really one of the fun things about this conference, like it'll go live on your video. So you'll meet face to face. So it feels less like we're on a big Zoom call and more like I made a buddy this weekend.
Right.
So if you're signed up, just get your bevy, start heading back over to Hoppin' now. The other places you're going to want to visit, you're going to want to visit the Bella Rosa booth. They're giving away a $200 gift card. So they have some really great cycling and
nice
triathlon
stuff. Mm-hmm.
outfits. They're super cute stuff. You're going to want to visit the Perspectives Footwear booth tomorrow morning before the sessions open. If you visit their booth, you have a chance to win an outfit. And they have some really great outfits, workout outfits. So you want to definitely visit there tomorrow morning. We've got a deal on our membership in the Feisty Menopause booth. So you're going to want to visit that as well. And then, Inside Tracker. We talked about Inside Tracker tonight. There's a 25% off coupon in the Inside Tracker booth. And then lots of other deals that are in those booths. So from here, you just go over there. Tomorrow, if you are signed up for the summit, you will log in and you will go to Hoppin', not to YouTube. This was just a one-time deal. And we felt like you and Rebecca Rusch were too good just to share. Like we had to share you with the world. So you'll go there tomorrow to watch everything. If you want to watch replays, you'll watch those there. And then after the weekend is over, the replays will be available in about 48 hours. We'll send you an email about how to get those. Everything in Hoppin' is in your time zone. So don't calculate what time zone you think it's in and show up 3 hours earlier, because we had this happen at our last summit and somebody woke up at like 4 a.m. to come to a session. And it was because she took Hoppin' back from her time zone. So it is in your time zone. Go to your time zone. I think those are the big things everybody needs to know. But I hope to see some people over in the booth. And I hope to see some people in the networking. And I hope my internet doesn't crash again. Celine, what was your favorite part of tonight?
I really like being able to sit down with Reba at the end there and answer some questions with her. It's been a long time since we got to. I mean, it felt very. We haven't seen each other in a long time, so it was really nice to connect again. I mean, I really enjoyed her talk, and just we've been through a lot together, so it's really fun to be at this stage and to be still carrying on. I really enjoyed that. And
I see Rebecca backstage. I'm putting you on the spot right now. Rebecca, I keep telling Celine she needs to write her book. What do you think? Give me the thumbs up if you agree. So if anybody wants to see Celine write her book, you should put it in the comments. And then we're going to go ahead. We're going to head out. We're going to put up a slide just to thank our sponsors on our way out. And then you can come over if you're registered for the conference and visit us over on the Hoppin' platform.
All right. See you in a sec.